All right, students, so today we're going to be evaluating expressions. If you look at the top directions, it says evaluate each expression using the values m equals 7, r equals 8, and t equals 2. So for each of these expressions, we're going to evaluate. Evaluate means to basically plug in the value, the correct value where it belongs. So let's start off with the first one. Number 1, it says 5m minus 6. So what the first thing you should do is always replace the m with a set of parentheses, because that is where we're going to be substituting what m actually equals. If you look back at the directions or the question, it tells me that m equals 7. So instead of an m, notice I have put a set of parentheses because that's where I'm going to plug in a 7. Make sure you have your calculator handy, because this expression right here is what I'm going to plug into the calculator. So on the regular evaluate calculation screen of the calculator, I'm going to put 5 parentheses 7, close the parentheses, subtract 6. Make sure you use the subtract 6, and then press enter, and it will give me my answer, which is 29. Sorry, I'll put that back on there. Yes, it gives me 29. 5 times 7 is 35, minus 6 is 29. Let's move on to the next one. I'll do that one in a different color here. Number 2, it says 4m plus t. Notice there are 2 different variables, which means we have to plug in whatever the m equals and whatever the t equals in the correct spot. So I'm going to keep my 4. The 4 will not change, but instead of an m, I'm going to make a set of parentheses, keep my plus sign, and then instead of a t, I'm going to make another set of parentheses. Like I said, there's 2 different variables, so 2 different things get plugged in. Remember what the m equaled? If you don't, you can look at the top. The m equals 7, so instead of an m, I'm going to replace it with a 7. However, the t, it says t equals, you can see it there, t equals 2, so I'm going to plug in a 2 instead of a t. And once again, I'm going to pop the calculator back up, and I'm going to put 4 parentheses 7. Yes, you must use the parentheses because the calculator needs to know that it's multiplication going on. Plus, and then for parentheses, I would definitely use parentheses again for your 2. You never know if something might be negative or not. And then you press enter and see what it is. And I'm getting 30 this time. I'll put my calculator back up. Now we will move on to number 7. On number 7, I'll move a little bit slower on number 7. Notice it says 3m subtract 5t. So I'm going to replace all the variables with parentheses because I have to substitute numbers instead of letters. So I wrote my 3, then I put a set of parentheses because the m needs to get plugged in there. What is m? Look back up at the top. It tells me that m equals 7. So that's why I'm going to plug a 7 into the parentheses right there. And then the t, if we look back up at the top to see what t equals, what am I going to substitute for t is actually a 2. So I'm plugging in a 2 next to the 5 and a 7 next to the 3. And then once again, I'm using my calculator to calculate what that will equal. I'm sure some of you can just use your brain. 3 times 7, subtract 5 times 2. But let's always double check. Double checking is very good, especially if you're using a calculator. I'm sorry, especially if you were taking a test, you would always want to double check just in case. And this time I'm getting 11 for my answer. So that's how you evaluate. Evaluating is just simply plugging in the numbers wherever they need to go. And at the top or in the problem somewhere, it should definitely tell you what each variable equals so you can plug it in. And one last one down here, I'll do this one, number 8. It looks like I don't have any numbers. All I have is variables. I have a division sign or a fraction. I plug the m in, then the r in, and then I have the t at the bottom. So if I go back, I'm going to look and see what is the m equal. The m equals 7. The R equals 8. And the T equals 2. And once again, I can definitely plug that in the calculator. Hopefully you remember the trick, but if you press the green alpha button and then Y equals, and then enter, you'll get a perfect little fraction that will pop up there if you look at my calculator screen. And then I can still use parentheses with my 7 inside, parentheses 8, that's at the top, and then at the bottom, I have parentheses with my 2 inside of my parentheses. And then you can press enter, see what that equals. And I got 28 for number 8. If you need to pause the video or if you need to rewind the video, please do. If you need to see something again, rewind or pause. And then, all right. So moving on to the next screen. This is what you're going to see. This is more of what you will see during your time in this course. If you look at the directions, it says find the following values for f of x equals 0.4x plus 11 for each function below. However, it's the same thing as evaluating. Notice this, it just gives you what your function is. It tells you f of x. You really don't need that part. We need to see what the actual expression is or the function is right here. And this right here is the part that we're going to use to actually evaluate each of the 3 problems over here. So let's start with f of 3. F of 3, what that means is that just means x equals 3. Notice how instead of an x, we have a 3. That means that x is going to get substituted for a 3 each time we want to evaluate. So we have 0.4, and instead of writing x, remember I'm going to use a set of parentheses because that's where I'm going to plug in my x, plus 11. Remember, you're going to need those calculators handy. And so instead of the x, I'm going to plug in a 3 right here. I'm going to make that red. And then I'm going to use my calculator again. I'm going to evaluate. I'm going to plug it in my calculator and see what it equals. So it's 0.4 parentheses, plug in a 3, plus 11. And what does it equal? 12.2. So I got 12.2 as my answer. And then the next one, they want us to evaluate or plug in. This time it's telling us that the x equals -3. So I'm going to use the same function, the same expression, with the same equation, just like on the first screen, but this time I'm going to plug in a -3. And I'm going to use my calculator again. So this time I have 0.4 parentheses, but this time I have a -3. Make sure you use the button that's way at the bottom. I'm going to hover over it. This one right here, this is where our negative is at, just to remind you. So click -3, and then plus 11, let's see what that equals. Okay, now we're getting 9.8. Sorry, I'll put my calculator back on there for a second, so you can see it if you need to. Like I said, you can pause the video if you need to. And then let's do the last one here, which is f parentheses 10. What that means is that, remember, inside of the parentheses is where the x is located, but they changed it to a 10. So that just means x equals 10. I'm still plugging it into that same function, but this time I'm using, in my parentheses, I'm going to put a 10 in there, and then I'm going to plug it in my calculator and see what it equals. 0.4 parentheses, plug in a 10, plus 11, And let's see what that equals. Hopefully you got it before me. You can try it yourself. Good. That one should have been 15. All right. Oops. Uh-oh, I don't know how to bring that back. There we go. So yes, evaluating expressions, just like we did on the first slide that I showed you, we're just plugging in, we're substituting, is the same thing as when it looks like this. You just have to be careful because when they give you this number inside of the parentheses, that is what your X variable is going to be. We'll get more into depth with that once the course moves on. And then going to the next slide, there is a word problem. Let's read it. It says, for a walkathon, a sponsor committee, for a walkathon, a sponsor committee to give you a flat fee of $5, that doesn't make any sense. Committed, okay, I'm reading it wrong. For a walkathon, a sponsor committed to give you a flat fee of $5 plus $2 for every mile you walk. Okay, so this one, A tells us to write an expression for the total number you will collect from your sponsor at the end of the walkathon. So remember, when you're writing equations, you have to figure out what is happening each time, or per hour, per, in this case, it's for every mile. How much for every mile? It will be $2 for each mile, plus they said that they would give you a flat fee, which means that's your y-intercept, or your one-time fee of $5. So that would be our expression, $2 for each mile plus the $5 flat fee. Then it tells us to evaluate your expression for 20 miles. So what it wants me to do is it wants me to plug in, instead of an M, what am I going to replace for the miles? The problem tells me it's 20 miles. So I'm going to plug in a 20 right there. Instead of an M, I'm plugging in 20. I'm evaluating. Or another word is kind of like substituting. So if you pull up your calculator, you'll put 2 parentheses 20 plus 5. Then press enter. Like I said, some people can do it in their heads. Some people need to use the calculator, but everybody should be double checking. And then we'll see what that would be. That would be 45, what, 45? What was the problem talking about? You're getting $2 per mile plus $5. So your answer would be $45. That's how much the sponsor would be giving you. Let's try another one. I believe there's another word problem. All right, so here is the next one. Math is fun. Woo, woo. Okay, sorry, just have to do that. All right, so here we go. The next problem is you and 4 friends plan a surprise party. Each of you contributes the same amount of money, M, for food. Write an algebraic expression for the total amount of money contributed for food. So each of us is paying the same amount. So if all 4 of us pay the same amount of money, it would just be 4 times M, or 4M. And it says evaluate. Remember, once again, keyword evaluate means we're just plugging in what it needs to, the number that needs to go in there. So in this case, we have 4 and then parentheses. Because instead of M, now we have 525, because they're saying each person contributed 525. So let's go back and use our calculator. 4 parentheses, 5.25. And we'll see how much money was contributed totally. And that would be $21. So $21 is the total amount of food that was bought, $20 worth of food. And I think that might be it. Let me just double check. All right, so there is one more problem, and it goes back to using that weird, it's called function notation. And there are 2 different equations this time. It says you're trying to decide whether to have your birthday party at the movies or at Urban Air. It says let M of X represent the total for X people to go to the movies. Let U of X represent the total for X people to go to Urban Air. And then it tells me that the movies cost $9.50 per person. So 950 is like our slope. So we can just write that that equation would be 950x, or that expression is 950x. In urban air, it says urban air costs $14 for each person that will jump. So 14 per person that will jump for that one. And down below, it asked me to evaluate. This is evaluating. We're just plugging in. Do you notice that up at the top, up here, M had an X inside of the parentheses? But now at the bottom, they replaced it with a 4. That means 4 equals, X equals 4. So what they want me to do is use my equation, 9.50, plug in a 4 in that place, and then see what that would equal. And that's going to tell me how much, what the total would be for 4 people to go to the movies. So you can get your calculator again, and 9.50 parentheses 4, and press enter. That would be $38 for 4 people to go to the movies. But let's see how much it would cost for 4 people to go to urban air. In this case, I would have to use a different equation for urban air, which I already have it right here, 14x. So 14, but instead of x, I'm actually plugging in the 4 because I want to see how much 4 people will cost for urban air. So 14 parentheses 4, press enter, and then I get 56 for this one. So which one costs less? The movies cost less. That was not your bell. That was the bell that's here while I'm recording this. Don't try to get up and leave. All right, so the next one, let's just do the next one here and then we'll finish up the video. Maybe we'll have you answer the last 2. All right, so once again, I'm going back to using the movies equation for this one because it says M of 5. That means for my movie equation, it's 950, plug in the X. So this time I'm plugging in a 5. And then I'm gonna grab my calculator. Do I need to use the parentheses when I plug in the 5? That's always a question that people always ask. Do you have to use the parentheses? 9.50, plug in a 5, and then I'm getting 47. I clicked the screen off so fast. $47.50 for that one. That looks a little bit weird. $47.50 for 5 people to go to the movies. And then let's use our other equation to see how much it costs for 5 people to go to urban air. 14 times 5. So 14 parentheses 5. Yes, you have to use the parentheses. And then that's $70. So urban air is going to cost a little bit more, definitely. And then M of 6, I'm sorry, and U of 6, those 2 you will do on your own. All right, thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or you can message the teacher, but I hope this helps you in your assignment.